The dollars rise and fall.
Here's the deal. After World War II, America was the only major economy left standing. In 1944, world leaders gathered and made the dollar the center of the global financial system. Not because it was magic, but because everyone needed a common language for trade. Fast forward to today. Want to buy oil? You need dollars. Want to trade internationally? Dollars. Central banks building reserves? Dollars. A farmer in Vietnam, a tech startup in India, a copper mine in Chile. They all need dollars to do business. The entire global economy is wired through the dollar. It's not just powerful, it's the foundation everything else sits on.
The rise, when the dollar gets strong.
Now here's where it gets dangerous. When the dollar rises, usually because the U.S. Federal Reserve raises interest rates or global chaos sends everyone running to safety, poor countries get crushed. Here's why. Countries like Turkey, Sri Lanka, and Argentina borrowed billions in dollars when times were good. Now their own currencies are collapsing, but the debt is still in dollars. Imagine you borrowed $100,000 when your salary was $50,000 a year. Now your salary dropped to $25,000, but you still owe $100,000. That's what's happening to entire nations. The math becomes impossible. Governments face a nightmare choice: pay foreign banks or feed their own people. Real people, real pain. But forget the economics jargon for a second. Let's talk about what this actually means. In Egypt, a mother pays twice as much for bread because wheat is bought in dollars and her currency collapsed. In Pakistan, factories close because they can't afford dollar-priced equipment. In Sri Lanka, fuel stations run dry, protests erupt, and the government literally falls apart. This isn't abstract. When the dollar rises, store shelves empty, schools close, life savings become worthless. And the cruelest part? None of these people did anything wrong. A banker in Washington, D.C. raised interest rates, and a shopkeeper in Jakarta lost everything.
The fall, when the dollar gets weaker.
So a weaker dollar must be good news, right? Not exactly. When the dollar falls, through rate cuts or heavy money printing, the stress just changes shape. Commodities priced in dollars, like oil, food, and metals, rise in price. American families feel it at home. Gas costs more. Groceries cost more. That overseas vacation suddenly feels out of reach. Even everyday imported goods quietly get more expensive. Meanwhile, investors often pull money out of emerging markets and rush back into U.S. assets, draining capital from countries that need it most. Strong dollar or weak dollar, many countries face a lose-lose situation. One brings debt stress, the other brings inflation and capital flight. It can feel like being strapped into a vehicle you don't control, just hoping the next turn isn't the one that sends you off the road.
Understanding dollar dynamics. Understanding dollar dynamics.
Here's what actually happens when countries face dollar-related pressure. The IMF and World Bank step in, and while the terms are real, countries aren't simply left abandoned. Over time, many emerging economies have learned and adapted. They've diversified currency reserves, developed local debt markets, and strengthened fiscal policies. South Korea, Indonesia, and Poland faced severe crises in the 1990s. Today, they're among the world's more resilient economies. That wasn't luck. That was understanding the system and preparing for it. And here's the part that matters. A strong dollar isn't evil. A weak dollar isn't salvation. They're just different phases of the same cycle. What causes real damage isn't the dollar moving. It's being unprepared when it does. For everyday people, this isn't a reason to panic. Your life doesn't collapse because the dollar went up this year. It's a reminder to understand the system you're living in, not fear it. Diversification, awareness, and long-term thinking matter far more than any single exchange rate headline. The dollar will rise. It will fall. That's not chaos. That's global finance doing what it's always done.
The takeaways.
1. The dollar is the primary operating system of global trade. When it moves significantly, it affects countries and individuals differently. Understanding how it affects you is what really matters. 2. Currency pressure on developing nations is a real economic challenge, not a moral failure. Many of these countries are learning, adapting, and building resilience through smarter planning and policy. 3. Real financial wisdom isn't about predicting where the dollar goes next. It's about not betting everything on one currency, understanding global economic forces, and building flexibility into your financial life. Share this with someone who wants to understand how global economics actually work. And remember, the dollar's role in the world will continue to evolve, and so should your approach to understanding it. Share this with someone who wants to understand how global economics actually work. Remember, the dollar will keep evolving, and so should the way you think about money. If you learned something new, show some love and tell me your thoughts below. Until next time, bye-bye!